Broadcasting from Studio 202 at the Springett Technology Center in Navasota, Texas. It's NOV Live. Now, let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to NOV Live. My name is Shelby Domain and I'm your host this morning. We have a really exciting show planned for you today. We're going to be talking about the cabinless rig. And here in the studio, I have two extra special guests. We have Al Fredvik and Robert Goodwin. And I'm going to ask all a few questions here in a minute. But first, I actually have some footage from the rig itself. So like I said, we're going to be talking about the cabinless rig, which is simply how it sounds. It's the rig without the driller's cabin on it. So before I talk to y'all, maybe that was just a bit of a teaser for the audience. I actually want to show that video from the rig earlier. So we'll be right back to the studio. Hi, I'm here at the base of our test rig here in Navasota, Texas at our Springett Technology Center. And as you can see, the driller's cabin is actually right here below me, which means it's not up on the drill floor. So I'm going to take you up there now and we're going to talk to Kevin and learn a little bit more about that. I'm here with Kevin Guidry, rig manager, and we are standing exactly where the old cabin used to be. Can you tell us a little bit about when the cabin was officially removed off of the drill floor?
So we officially removed the cabin on March 8th this year. It's been kind of an ongoing project for over a year now, but March 8th was the transition and now automated from four cabins open.
And what does that mean, having the cabin moved off of the drill floor? How has that changed operations?
So on the operations standpoint, the way we managed to streamline towards automation, the fundamentals haven't changed at all. The only thing that has changed is the person's no longer up here in harm's way near the red zone. We take the person from the red zone and place it in a more safer area to further our vision towards automation management.
Yeah, making it safer is having it. Excellent. Thank you so much. And now we're going to see you back in the studio with our guests, Alf and Robert. See you there. All right. Thank you very much. And that was super exciting being out there on the rig earlier today and seeing how different it looked like, how much more open it was without that driller's cabin on the rig. So to talk about that more in detail, now I have, again, our two special guests here. I have Al Fredvik and Robert Goodwin. To start off, do you mind introducing yourselves? We can start with you, Alf.
Yeah, so Al Fredvik, I'm product line director for the digital products in RIG, which is control systems, automation, data, analytics, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Robert?
I'm Robert Goodwin. I'm product line director for drilling equipment. Mm-hmm. So we look after all the drilling piece of equipment on the rig, the top drives, the drawworks, the roughneck, and all the piping equipment. And recently we're looking after the robotics side of that in now introducing the commercialization of robotics, which is allowing us to, just like removing the cabin off the rig, do pipe handling without having any human interaction on the rig and removing people out of the red zone.
Excellent. And I wanted to start with, maybe it might sound like a basic question. And I know we just saw the footage of, again, the rig without the cabin on it. We're saying cabinless rig, but what does that really mean? I know we said in the video we removed the rig March 8th, but can you talk about what does it mean to be a cabinless drilling rig?
Yeah, it's a bit crazy, right?
Yeah.
You just take away that key central place where everything is happening. That's where you are controlling all the machines. And then suddenly you take it away. And if you think about it, that's quite a fundamental change. Yep. Because what you lose is you lose that line of sight. Mm-hmm. And what do you then do when you cannot see what you're doing? So even though physically it's just a few yards we're moving, but fundamentally it's very different. So, and what you're really trying to do is to create or enable the crew to do basically what they do today, but more efficient and from a nice location. Basically, if you think about the drill floor, it's noisy, it's dirty. Yeah. And it can even be dangerous. So it's a big our automation journey has really been from the start moving people away from harm, and this is the latest addition to that.
It's a big step change, is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, for years, forever, drilling operations have centered around, the center of the drilling rig. Originally guys were on the brakes, and they were manually operating the tools. And then as we moved into more, electrical driven processes, more AC driven rigs, more to digital controls, we took the guys off the rig floor and we put them into a cabin. But they, think of it as the command center of a rig. This is where the guys are driving all the top drives. They're driving the drawworks. They're not physically doing it on well center, but they're now doing it on the edge of the rig, and they have line of sight, and they're controlling all of this. But they're using joysticks, and it's almost like the command center of an airliner, or the command center of a drill ship, or a vessel.
Right.
And that's where the center of all the operations happen. And now what we've done is we said, we took the guys years ago doing the mechanical control. We have a digital control inside a cabin with the joystick, but they're remotely doing it today. Okay, it's 20 feet away. So we said, if they're doing 20 feet away, why can't they do it 200 feet away? Why can't they do it 2 miles away? So fundamentally, we've taken what they're doing and now moved it off of where all the activity is happening and put it onto the ground into a safer spot away from a well center. And so there's a lot of challenges there, because the cabin allows the drillers and the guys operating to have a line of sight of well center. So it's not as easy as just saying, let's take this cabin off and run longer extension cables. Let's take this cabin off. Now, how do we allow the driller and the assistant driller to have the same confidence level, the same ability to see what is going on in the rig? And this is where Alpha is really some of the new products we're working on, in the visualization technology, and using cameras and LiDAR and stitching this all together so the driller feels confident and has the same control. And that's what we're doing. It's not theoretical. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. No, we're doing it. We took the cabin off, and now we're doing hands-free piping with robotics, but we're also doing hands-free operation. Or we're doing operations without having a crew on there. It's really quite a sight to see, to go out to a rig and go, where's the cabin here? We got this viewer platform, but what's going on? And the guys are on the ground operating the rig. It gives me goosebumps to think about this is where we're going now.
Right. It was pretty phenomenal. This morning was my first time up there without the cabin, and it was a new world. It was so cool seeing the kind of walkway we have, and now you can see the robotics so much better, and you can see everything happening, and it's like, wow, it's pretty amazing.
And actually, I just want to add, we have done this once, and we actually, that was in Norway, and we did a test where we were driving machinery from, I don't even know what that is in miles, so 300 kilometers away. So that's, how much is it? 3 hours drive away. So, and we're actually sitting in a normal driller's chair, having these screens and all that, and we're able to real time, with just millisecond of latency to drive everything.
Wow. That's
what's
incredible.
really amazing is I've had the privilege to come out here to the STC rig and seeing what we're doing with some of the downhole tools, seeing what we're doing with robotics, and seeing us evolving in technology. Now we're moving the cabin, but how intuitive it's been for the drillers already. Even on, this is essentially day 3 of them operating without a cabin on there, and they pick it up just like they're operating the rig with the cabin onto the rig. They haven't really changed what they're doing. They're still communicating the same way. They're still talking through the same process. And so, it was very easy for them to adapt to this technology. And so it gets me very excited about where we're going next by removing the cabin and what other technologies with digital technologies, what other automation technology we can do downhole and on the rig, all combined with the cabin, and now moving it into a safer area.
Yeah.
And that's another very good point, because during the development, we have had many drillers from different companies coming and testing and feeling, sitting in front of the screens and just comparing how is it. compared to being physically on the rig.
Mhm.
So some comments we get, yeah, we kind of miss the vibration. We don't feel the rig. When you start the draw work, we don't feel the vibration and all that. But when they've been working on it a bit, they actually, the feedback we get, it's better. They have better control of what's happening. They don't have all those obstructions they have in the driller's
Right.
cabin. So and also we can talk about that as we go along here, but there is a lot of things you can do with that feed, that camera feed, like pop, or what you call it, head-up display. A lot of fancy stuff. We're just looking forward to get into that, because there is so much you can do when you have that digital feed instead of just having to look out the windows.
Right. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to ask too, is a little bit on the flow of information, how the game has changed in that regard. I know y'all talked a little bit about it. Can you share a little on the flow of information?
Yeah, so what we're basically doing is fundamentally three things makes it different. So the first one we touched on, it's no longer windows. Well, you can have windows, you can have sunshine. And air conditioning and all that, so that's nice, but you cannot look at the equipment physically or with your. So then we have to replace that vision with something else, and relative, that's not very fancy. We're just using cameras, but what's really the tricky part technically is to, because you need to have that complete coverage. With your eyes you can, or your head you can move around, so but you need to have that full camera coverage, and that's quite a lot of processing going into that. So that's step number one, replacing that visual, but then you can also enhance, like augment what you're seeing by adding different kind of information which is not naturally what you see. So you can add on, for example, top drive torque. When you are kind of making up, you can visualize on the connection, directly on the connection, visualize how much the torque is. So you,
Alf, is this? I think of this as like as you're driving in your car, you get the heads-up display where you still, you're using your screen of your car to see. In this case, we're using these cameras now. You have a screen, but now we can have this heads-up display of, what weight on bit, what your torque is, and display and other informations that is easily accessible.
It reminds me of like this in the movies, the spy glasses, where and you have someone in the command center that can see all of the X-rays and all that of everything.
Yeah, and you can just make that user experience so much more intuitively, and instead of having to know where to look for information, you can just feed the right information all the time to the driller. So you just push it to him instead of him having to seek it, and yeah, it's just mind-blowing what you can do when you are having everything digital.
It's taking that, again, the driller's chair is really like the Starship Enterprise. That's where all the action happens, and there's a lot of different, even today there's a lot of different screens they have to look at as well as look out the cabin. So by taking this camera feed and taking these images together and projecting it, now we could take the other control systems of what your drawworks are doing, what your top driver's doing, what you're waiting on bid, what are the activities on rig, but put them into one seamless area where now the driller's not turning his head I know it's 15 degrees or 30 degrees, but now he's focused on one area. And he has all this information to him at a very accessible, easy way to understand and continue to operate the rig. And it's pretty amazing how much data he's able to interpret and how much easier it makes his job while he's drilling a well. And the accuracy in which he can now understand what is actually happening to the piece of equipment on the rig, as well as what is happening digitally downhole through, say, their no-well system or so.
And what's also happens when you have all this digital is that it's not only kind of adjacent to the rig like we have here. You can take that same information and go as far as the network goes, basically. You can go from here to Houston office, or you can go to Norway where I'm working. So actually, So all that content, which is then being available on the rig, gets accessible from wherever you're sitting and whoever have access to the system. So you can.
Once joked it could almost work from home. Maybe not quite.
I don't think there will be. Someone have been describing this scenario where you are on the beach and having an iPad like you, and then push the drill, and then
maybe one day we can go to work from home. But right now it's really how we're gathering this information and how we take that back, as Alf was saying, take that back and analyze that. You know, so what we can do now, he visualizes, say, let's call it torquing up drill pipe, and he can start noticing trends as he's torquing up drill pipes, and it can display this information on the screen of, 8% over torque on these connections, and he can start trending that. And then what does that do to you drilling a well? What does that do to your tubular maintenance? What does that do to the life of that? What does that do to your wellbore integrity? So he can gather all that information. So information is important, but it's how, in context, how you use it.
Right.
And this system allows us to understand it a little bit better and make more sense of this information. It gives us a lot of trends where now we can understand, how do we make process improvements? How do we make procedural improvements? And then how do we make improvements to the equipment just from what we're seeing real and live time and what we're able to record back at an office or analyze at a later date.
Right. And we've talked about the driller. I want to ask a little more, I think, a question that always comes up when we talk about robotics or whatnot is what happens to the humans that were on the drill floor. Can you talk a little bit about their role?
If you're gonna talk about robotics, one of the things that we wanted to do with robotics was replicate the activities that are manual on the rig right now, whether that's doping tubulars, whether that's tailing, whether that's helping with the mud containment operations. Through the use of these robotic arms, we're able to do those tasks and remove the guys out of the red zone. And really, we say displacing them. We have a robotic arm on the fingerboard that instead of having a guy over there grab the tubular and put it into the elevators, the robotic arm does that. But now, what does that do to the rig? It allows the rig to do other operations. Now you have the same crew, but instead of having a guy in the fingerboard, now he's off doing another activity on the rig, or the two guys on the drill floor are doing another activity on the rig. So really, we're not removing people, we're displacing people to do another activity, which now adds to efficiencies of the rig. You can prep for rig moves, you can prep for the next operations, you can start increasing some of those areas of flat time during rig operations that you couldn't because your rig crew was busy doing those activities. But now they're doing something else. So that gets exciting though. It's not just removing people. What we're doing is we're taking people out of a very strenuous job, high labor job, sometimes a dangerous job. They work in all sorts of weather conditions, and we're allowing them to do another activity on the rig, maybe inside an enclosed area, or do some other maintenance operations. So that's exciting for us, what we're doing with that particular set of equipment.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think, again, I think I said it initially, to enable the crew to do the same job, more efficient, and from a nicer place. And I think that's what happens, or that's what we do with the crew. So we need to automate, so do not have to be physically on there. So obviously we need to have machinery that do the stuff which humans typically used. Robot been through that with the robotics. We also need to, on the control side of things, we need to drive those machines, so it becomes more or less a one push activity, not having to be and do all these tiny steps. And when you have that established, then you're ready to really address the information piece of it, and that's where we have got to know where we have done automation. We are really successful in the market out there. I think we have more than 150 NOV systems. They're performing great. Wow. They are more efficient, consistent, and all that, and getting quite far with the robotics. So now it's time to really address that information space, and it's just really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And how does the cabinless rig, how does that fit into the overall strategy for automation?
So it is the next step.
Mhm.
We have been doing automation for quite some time. We are doing automated tripping. We are doing automated drilling. We have offshore and land. We are taking those manual tasks and adding robotics to it, so it's no longer have to be done by humans.
Right.
So basically moving people away from the floor, and then why do you have to be there? Why do you have to have the driller's cabin on the floor if there is no need for hands on deck? So
Yeah.
then you obviously make the move to bringing them out of harm's way and give them a better place to work from. There will always be, and I think for a long time, need for people on drill floor. We are not saying that you can drill from home.
Right.
The whole crew stay home. No, let's do a evening session while we are on the pub. That's not how it's going to be. It's going to be, you have to be out there. There will be manual tasks for sure, some, but on the basic drilling activity, when you're tripping, when you're drilling, it will be automated, and then no need to be there physically.
Right.
The real
Right.
question is why not remove the cabin? I mean,
Right.
we've now looked at, through the use of robotic systems and incorporate that. We're removing people for the pipe handling, the drilling, and the tripping operations. It's just natural now to go, wait, we've taken these people off the drill floor, out of the fingerboard, but we still have guys that are on the drilling rig, drilling the well. Why can't we take them off too? And that's, and so, yes, we can, use of this camera technology, use of the new automated technology, and some digitalization and some of the processors. We're able to now use cameras to be able to see what we can see and actually see more and have more information available. And so it was really logical to go,
Right.
I've taken some people off for this operation. Why don't I take them off for the entirety of it and have everybody off? And, it gets us really excited too of, what does that do for particular land rigs? What does it do for drilling rigs of the future? Now, if I
Right.
don't have a cabin on, why does the rig have to be the size it is? If I don't have people on it, why do we have to place equipment the way that we're placing it? Can I change some of the processes now because I don't have people? And Alpha's right. There's still going to be some manual operations, but now you change that process of how you have that manual operation. Could you do that on the ground instead of doing on the floor again? And so that's what removing the cabin does for us. It shows us that it is feasible. We are doing it today, and that's a direction that we're going. Our goal is to be able to have, a remote drilling rig, a manless drilling rig with some human interaction that, a rig would have to move, and you're going to have a crew to move rigs. But does that change the way a drill crew is manned today? Do you have a specialized moving crew? Do you have a specialized crew to do certain operations? And, it's really going to change how a drilling rig is put together and what some of the pieces of equipment look like. I mean, you still have to essentially hoist, circulate, and rotate with the three big functions of what a drilling rig is. But now we can do it with some digital processes. We can do it with some automation technology. We certainly can do it now. As Alf keeps talking about, we're doing it now with a robotic system. So, yeah, the cabin just was, you're looking up there and go, we took people off this operation. It's logical. Let's take the cabin off again.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, what you have been through, COVID and all that, it has possibly been misused as examples of a lot of things. But if you use that example again, I think we are appreciating the flexibility that's given. We are appreciating what that brings when it comes to access to talent.
Right.
It is environmental. You don't have to drive your car all around. So,
Right.
so going remote is not only safety. It's not only locally at the rig that the operation gets better, but it's all these other remote side effects, which is it can be huge as we are progressing further. And move from adjacent to remote,
Right.
which we have already tried, and it works nice. So yeah,
And I think, Alf, on that too, there's a talent side. Now that
Yep.
I've talked to many contractors, and you talk to some of the operators as well, and the general message over the last couple of months has been, I would put more rigs back to work if I could find people.
Yes.
And that's been a big challenge. Of here you are, it's very difficult. I spent the money on this big asset, whether it's a drilling rig, offshore dual activity drill ship, or a 1,500 horsepower land rig, but you can't staff it. And so with some of this remote technology, with some of this automation technology we're looking at, now we're able to do some of those activities and also change the skill set of the guys that you're looking at,
Right.
and also attract people now that, hey, I can work on a drilling rig, and I don't have to stand here for 12 hours a day in the rain and deal with the mud, because I'm using these automation systems to drive the rig remotely. That changes it. It's pretty exciting technology, and I'm a big proponent of it. I get excited by this. I mean, what we're doing in the drilling industry, drilling wells that are 7 miles long, that are 15,000 feet deep, and then 7-mile laterals, and hitting something the size of this table. Is NASA level technology, and it's pretty amazing. And
Oh yeah.
that's through some of our NOAA's control systems that we're doing. That's through the feedback we get from the top drives and the drawworks. It's not just putting pipe into the ground and go, we're going to hit some oil and it's going to come out. It's
Right.
This is digitally controlled, and we're able to bend the drill pipe, and we're able to go where we need to go to these different zones. And that's using this technology enables us. And so now, if we could do that from a safer area, a remote area, that's the goal, and that's where we're going.
And that's
Absolutely.
actually, we have an animation. I would like to show that.
Yes. Yeah, we had it. Can we pull it back up? We'll hit that
because,
right up.
because it's that's exactly what we're talking about, and
Here it is.
we're talking about information, and the animation we're showing here is something which visualize that, because on one side you just have the camera, and that's what you typically would see when you're looking out the windows. But what you also have there is downhole, what's happening downhole, and Robert was talking about hitting a spot at the size of that table, and that's what, with all these new digital technologies, you have hydraulic models, you have all this data coming from downhole, you have wired pipe, and bringing all that to surface, analyze it, calculate risk and mitigations, and feeding that to the driller, and creating really a cockpit visualization of what to do.
Right.
So it is truly, as I think our good colleagues in Melbourne have been talking about for a long time, turning on the light downhole.
Right.
And by combining surface, looking out the windows, and pop, what you call it, head up displays and all
Heads
that.
up display, yeah.
Yeah, good. You're a car man, thank you. And then it is combining that with downhole, and actually make those two worlds live together and feed both situations to the driller. I think it's just going to give a completely different and new perspective. And direction and drilling, for example. So the solution we're having here is completely open to third party. So SLB can be on there, Halliburton can be on there, Baker can be on there, all the big three, or anyone else. We have this interface where you can actually, the idea is to bring the different parties on the rig together, feeding this information into the system, and then creating that kind of cockpit experience for the driller.
Right. Well, I think the comparison to NASA is a great one too. When I started in the industry 5 years ago, that was my first takeaway is, everyone talks about how exciting space exploration is. I feel like going the other way, going opposite, going down, what we're able to do downhole, and like you said, hitting something so small 7 miles away is just as fascinating to me. And this feels like that kind of next step, like the Mission Control Center, seeing, and we have liftoff. And that's what it feels like, but we're going the other way, and that's really exciting.
It is, each rig is, that's it. The driller's cabin is Mission Control Center.
Exactly.
It's the center of all the operation where everything happens. So it is, we realize it is a big step change to take the cabin off. There are some challenges with line of sight, but it is the next evolution, as we continue to drive and we continue to drill more complicated wells, but we continue to drill them more efficiently. I mean, what we're doing today in drilling wells, we're drilling wells in a third of the time we were 10 years ago. I mean, that's 2/3 of the time gone. That, Alf mentioned the ESG score, mentioned safety. Now we don't have guys going back and forth, whether it's offshore rig or a land rig, back and forth all the time. And, there's less people on the road, less logistical transportation. And this is just the next step of taking that digital technology, taking what we've done with automating the drill floor process. And now, taking it, we're challenging ourselves to take the cabin off and force ourselves to say, now let's do it without line of sight. Let's use these camera technologies. Let's, it is interesting, Alf, you mentioned that, the tactile vibration of a rig. It's sort of back to my car stuff is, now they're pumping sounds into a car because we're going to go electric cars, and you want to hear what the motor sounds, hear what the motor sounds like. But maybe we should do that. Maybe we should make the cabin vibrate.
Yeah, like how what is an Xbox controller kind of shakes.
It's just kind of vibrate. But it's a different tactile sensation.
Right.
But I think still, even again, day 3, these guys intuitively are going, this is the right thing to do. We're getting used to it. We're getting used to the communication. We're understanding how we're doing these different processes and how we continue to drill, or how we manipulate tubulars, how we hand out pipe. So it's just a very exciting.
Yeah. Just a fun fact on that. I talked about having drillers and trying the system out. They actually said that they can live with the vibration without vibrations, but the sound they need. So it's very important for them to get the sound, not only the image, it's also the sound.
Right. That's very interesting. And I want to ask you, we talked about how it fits into how the cabinless rig fits into the into automation strategy. What is next? You were talking about what are the next steps? What's next for automation?
So we have steps going beyond this, but we really want to stay a bit on this because there are so much we can do.
Right. Possibilities here.
Yeah, so much. And for our customers, it's a big move also. And it's been a barrier for the drillers to start to trust automated systems and leave the handle to the software. That's scary. It's like a self-driving car, more or less.
Right.
And now you are even asked to not even look at it. So it is a big step, and it's also we have done a lot on the visualization side. We have come quite far, but there is still a lot we can do, making that user experience even better. For example, how it works today is that the driller need to select. He can set up different ways to look at things, so he can have one set of information when he's stripping, and another one when he's drilling. But then going forward, we can make that automatically change as the activity are happening. So you can automatically zoom in when you're stabbing. So you really can see whether you hit the box. And a lot of dynamic stuff like that. We want to work on that. So I think we're going to stay there for a while, Robert. And
I think so. I mean, one of my colleagues always says, where are we driving? And I like it. He jokes. He said, really, what we're doing is I'm going to get out my phone and get my app and say, you want an oil or gas well? And I'm going to hit the oil button, and then we're going to drill an oil well. I mean, we joke about that, but that's really where we're driving. Is so we're automating that process. We're with our digital downhole technology. And then we're looking at how do we move additional people off the rig. We're automating the mechanics of the piece of equipment on a rig, and we're making that fully automated. So we incorporate those together, so the sum of those two parts is greater than them individually. And so that's where we're going is, can we continue to streamline the process? Can we continue to remove steps in the process? Can we continue to provide data in a way that is very tangible to the driller, to the operator, so they can plan their wells? Can we continue to eliminate risks? It's all about risk mitigation and always drilling well consistently every single time. And that's where we're going. So doing that by removing people, do it in a safer, more efficient operation,
right.
And doing it the same way every single time. and maybe that's with less people
Mhm.
on the rig. Is it one person doing some manual tasks on the rig? That's the direction. That's what's next.
Yeah.
Right.
And then of course hitting the oil or gas button. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Now I'm gonna
Yeah.
oil rig right now.
Yeah.
It's a fully enclosed autonomous drilling. And we're done.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, we want to
Yeah.
do what we're doing now, but just to perfection.
Right.
That's and yeah, we have plans, obviously, but
Yeah. Well, it's like you said earlier, why not? It might sound crazy at first doing it from an iPad on the beach or doing it from your phone, but like you said, why not? Why aren't we trying to do these great, why aren't we pushing it forward and
yeah.
I mean,
looking in the
we
future
did it
and-
once. Again, the guys were on a band break and they were working the drawworks manually,
Mhm.
almost at Well Center. And then we said, hey, let's go to this cabin. And we don't want to go to a cabin. I can't see, I can't feel it, I can't hear it. And then every rig we've built over the last 20 years has cabins on it. And so immediately you go, okay, well, I'm not going to not have a cabin rig with this control station and with all this technology.
Mhm.
So why wouldn't we go the next step and go, okay, now we're going to take the cabin off and give you
Right.
even more information that's
Mm.
easy to digest and
Mm.
understandable, give you more accuracy. It's just, I know here in 5 years and 10 years, people will go, oh man, remember that time we used to drill wells with the cabin on the rig?
Yeah.
It's going to become,
Right.
That's we just aren't going to do that anymore. Just like we're not drilling with manually anymore.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
Well,
and
gentlemen.
if you think offshore, for example, you have a rig,
Mhm.
120 people is needed to run a rig, and
Mhm.
approximately 30 to 40% is service companies or
Mm.
not the crew itself. And there is a lot of push offshore to get more and more of those operations supported from onshore. And this is a technology that support that to move people away, move them into operation centers, and they can entertain many rigs in parallel. They don't have to be physical on each and every rig. So there are a lot of aspects to it when you can share the same information, one common truth, and you can share that across location, across teams.
Right.
Everyone is having access to the same.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Right. Like you said, this next step is this, and it's a big step. So
Yes.
making all, seeing all the opportunities within it and
Yes.
starting that process is really what's so
Exactly.
exciting.
Yep.
Well, thank y'all both so much. I've been wanting to have this topic on the show as soon as I heard about it, which I feel like has been years. I've heard maybe we could do a manless rig, and then I've seen it grow and grow and grow, and then the cabin was removed, and I kept saying to David Reed, when can we get it on the show? And he finally said, we're doing it. Everyone's in Houston this week. A lot of conversations around offshore and around the energy industry. And I'm so excited to be able to have y'all on.
It's just inspiring just to, again, I've
Right.
been out here, seen this rig before, but to see, where's the cabin?
Yeah.
But it does make sense. And it still is, the few operators we've had out here, the few contractors we've had here
Mhm.
already this week is just, everybody's shaking their head. This is the way we're
Right.
going to go. Why
Mhm.
why haven't we done this before is really the question. And so, it's great if people get the opportunity to come out here to see and witness what we're doing. It's, again, not an experiment. We're doing it. It's not a discussion point. We're doing it.
Right. And we might even say if someone's watching and you or your company wants to see it for yourselves, we do tours here at the rig. You can reach out to us. I know you can get in contact with the show, social media at NOV.com, and we can see if we can set that up. But is there any emails that y'all want to shout out, or just reach out to us there?
Yeah, I think you can contact both of us, but I think if they can just approach
All right.
whatever contact information.
Sounds good.
you
We'll do
have,
that. So that's social media at NOV.com,
yes,
and I can get y'all in touch.
and then we get a ton of questions.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so.
Well, thank you
All
for
right.
having us.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Thank you both so much. And I also wanted to say for everybody watching, if you want to tune in on Thursday, we are going live from our customer showcase. So tune in there. You can see all the technology we're going to have on site, as well as about 9 different really exciting guests. So we'll see you Thursday. And thanks for joining us this morning.